The wind doesn't howl here, it screams. A creature moves through a forest of ferns and ancient flowering trees, its breath clouding in the cold polar air. It is roughly the length of a pickup truck, lean and terrible, balanced on two powerful legs. Its claws are built for seizing, curved like fishhooks, strong enough to pin prey against the ground and hold it there, thrashing until stillness comes. It scans the underbrush, waiting, watching. Its eyes don't miss anything. This is Antarctica. 70 million years ago, and it is alive, thriving, green, roaring with life in a way that would make your mind break open if you could see it. But here's what makes this moment extraordinary. In roughly 3 million years, almost everything you're looking at will be gone. The trees, the warmth, the ferns, the creature, all of it erased. This is the story of Imperobator antarcticus, the powerful warrior of Antarctica, a predator that lived and hunted at the very edge of the world in the final twilight of the age of dinosaurs, a creature so remote, so perfectly strange, that we almost never knew it existed at all. But to understand what it was and why it matters, we need to go back to a continent that no longer exists as it once did, and a world standing on the edge of oblivion. Stand on the coast of what will one day be called James Ross Island, and breathe. The air is cool, not the killing cold you might expect, but temperate, layered with moisture rolling in from a sea that is warmer, shallower, and stranger than any ocean alive today. The sky is enormous and pale. Broad-leafed ferns press in from every direction, their fronds heavy with dew. Above them, southern beech trees rise in thick canopies, and beneath your feet, the soil is rich and dark and wet. There is no ice, not a single glacier, not a single permanent snowfield. The poles of this planet are not yet the frozen engines of cold that they will one day become. Antarctica, at this moment in deep time, is a place you could walk through without freezing, a real, living, breathing ecosystem. More than 2,000 kilometers closer to the equator than it is today, still drifting slowly southward on the slow machinery of plate tectonics. The sun, however, is a complicated guest. This far south, the winters bring months of unbroken darkness, polar nights that stretch on and on, while the rest of the planet cycles through its seasons. And the summers bring the opposite, endless days when light falls at a low golden angle around the clock, and the forest grows in that perpetual amber glow. Life here has adapted to extremes that few other places on Earth demand. In the southern ocean around this landmass, mosasaurs patrol the shallows. Enormous, serpentine marine reptiles, the apex predators of the Cretaceous seas, as long as city buses, their paddle-like limbs driving them silently through water the color of jade. Plesiosaurs breach further out, their long necks craning above the surface for a single silver breath before plunging down again. The seas here are as full and violent as any on Earth. On land, there is no silence. There never is in a living world. Insects drone in the undergrowth. Somewhere in the canopy above, early birds, small, feathered, unmistakably avian, call to each other across the treetops. These birds are Cretaceous creatures, beak-faced and hollow-boned, barely distinguishable at first glance from the small feathered dinosaurs that share the forest floor with them. The boundary between bird and dinosaur here is not a line, it is a blur. And through all of this, through the ferns and the wet soil and the low golden light, something is hunting. Imagine standing where the Antarctic research stations now hum with generators and satellite dishes, but instead of permafrost and ice, there is forest. Instead of snowdrifts, there are game trails. And instead of silence, there is the crack of something large moving through undergrowth, something with intent and patience and claws. Antarctica, at this moment, is not the end of the world. It is the world, fully alive, fully functioning, a complete and breathing ecosystem. But something is already beginning to change in the deep places of the planet where even the most powerful predators cannot feel it yet. To understand Imperobator, you first have to understand what kind of world produced it. The Cretaceous period is the peak of the dinosaurs, the apex of their 70-million-year experiment in dominating terrestrial life. By this point, evolution has had an extraordinary amount of time to refine, pressure test, and rebuild these creatures across every continent on the planet. And what it has produced by 71 million years ago is a world of almost terrifying ecological complexity. In the north, in the land masses that will one day become North America and Asia, the story everyone knows is already in full roar. Tyrannosaurus rex is in its final million years. Triceratops shakes the earth with each footfall. Ankylosaurus moves like a tank with a wrecking ball welded to its tail. These are the celebrities of the Cretaceous, the faces on the museum posters, the creatures that fire the imagination of every child who has ever stared up at a skeleton in awe. But evolution doesn't stop at the equator. And in the southern hemisphere, in the vast, semi-isolated landmasses of Gondwana, the ancient supercontinent slowly tearing itself apart, a parallel story is unfolding. One that is stranger, more isolated, and in many ways more remarkable. This is where Imperobator antarcticus enters. Picture it, a theropod, bipedal, fast, designed for killing. In body plan, it echoes the raptors of the north, those infamous pack hunters built for speed and coordination. It is not as large as Tyrannosaurus. Nothing south of the equator is, at this moment, but it doesn't need to be. Antarctica's prey animals are smaller, the ecosystem more compact, the rules of the game slightly different. Imperobator is built for its world, not someone else's. Its hind legs are powerful and long, built for bursts of speed across uneven ground. Its forelimbs, shorter, yes, but equipped with those curved, gripping claws, are not vestigial ornaments but functional weapons. When Imperobator gets close enough to a target, those claws close like a trap. Prey animals that outrun it rarely escape a second time. Prey animals that don't outrun it don't get a second chance at all. We know it primarily from fragments, bones discovered on James Ross Island in sediment dating to the very final chapter of the Cretaceous. But from those fragments, paleontologists have reconstructed something genuinely startling: a large, active, top-tier predator operating in a place where, by conventional logic, complex ecosystems should struggle to exist. The polar darkness, the extreme seasonality, the geographic isolation, all of these should work against the development of apex predators. And yet, here it is. This is evolution's great genius and its most maddening habit. It finds a way. Always. It fills every available space, solves every available problem, builds predators where predators have no business existing. Imperobator is one of only 2 non-avian theropod dinosaurs ever discovered in Antarctica. 2. In the entire fossil record of an entire continent, we have evidence of exactly 2 large predatory dinosaurs, and one of them was given a name that translates, roughly, as powerful warrior. In the undergrowth beneath Imperobator's hunting grounds, smaller creatures moved carefully. Early mammals, tiny, shrew-like, nocturnal, pressed themselves into burrows and root systems, living lives of permanent caution. They had been living lives of permanent caution for over 100 million years by this point. For as long as dinosaurs had dominated the land, these small, warm-blooded survivors had occupied the margins, the cracks, the shadows, the places predators didn't bother looking. They were not impressive by any measure you'd use in the Cretaceous. They were not fast, not strong, not armored, not large, but they were survivors in ways that no creature in the forest above them yet understood. And deep in the Southern Ocean, beneath the mosasaurs and the plesiosaurs, something else was shifting, a slow change in ocean chemistry, a slight cooling at depth, a signal as quiet and easy to miss as a held breath before a scream. For a few million years, a span of time so vast it erases all human history 10,000 times over, the world of Imperobator holds together an extraordinary balance. The Antarctic ecosystem runs on its own internal logic. The long polar summers pump energy into the forest canopy, feeding the herbivores, which feed the larger herbivores, which feed the predators. Imperobator sits at the top of this chain with the calm authority of an apex predator, that has never known serious competition. It ranges across the ancient forests of what will one day be called the Antarctic Peninsula, following game trails through ferns and southern beach, its footprints pressed into mud that will, tens of millions of years from now, harden into stone and wait to be found. The world at this moment is very nearly perfect in its way. Not paradise, never for any creature, because the price of being alive is constant effort and constant risk, but complete, functionally beautiful. A web of relationships so intricate that pulling any single thread would unravel something significant. In the shallow coastal waters, mosasaurs fed on ammonites, spiraled, shell-armored cephalopods that had themselves been navigating Earth's oceans for 300 million years. Ammonites in every size, every shape, some as small as coins and some as wide as tractor wheels, spiraling through the cold southern waters in numbers that would stagger the imagination. They had survived every catastrophe the planet had thrown at them for hundreds of millions of years. They were ancient, successful, and seemingly indestructible. Seemingly. In the northern hemisphere, far north of Antarctica's forests, in the volcanic chains and shallow seas of what would one day become the Atlantic, something dark was beginning. The Deccan Traps, a volcanic event so enormous that calling it a volcano is like calling the Pacific Ocean a puddle. Vast sheets of basaltic magma were already pushing through the Indian subcontinent, erupting in pulses that lasted hundreds of thousands of years, pumping carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere in quantities the planet had not seen in tens of millions of years. The climate was already changing, subtly, gradually, a degree here, half a degree there, the kind of change that no living creature could feel or register, but that the planet's systems recorded faithfully. And then, 66 million years ago, the asteroid hit Earth. Now here is where we come back to Imperobator, because Antarctica's fate in all of this was not straightforward. It was not instant, and that matters. The impact site was in Mexico, on the other side of the planet from the Antarctic Peninsula. The initial fireball, the shockwave, the immediate thermal pulse, these were most devastating in the northern hemisphere, closest to the strike. Antarctica was insulated by distance, by ocean, by its own geographic remoteness. There is a real possibility that the first weeks and months after the impact were survivable in the Antarctic forests, in a way they simply weren't elsewhere. The fires that swept North America and Asia may not have reached this far south with the same ferocity. And here is something remarkable. Imperobator had already spent its entire evolutionary history surviving Antarctic winters, months of polar darkness, temperatures that dropped and stayed low, a world that went quiet and lean every single year and then came back. In a strange way, the impact's first gift to the world was darkness, and Imperobator knew darkness. It had lived with darkness every winter of its existence. So it is entirely possible, and some researchers believe it likely, that Imperobator survived the initial impact, that it was still alive weeks, months, perhaps even a year or more after the asteroid hit, that while Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops were dying in a burning northern hemisphere, the powerful warrior of Antarctica was still moving through its cooling forest, still hunting, still breathing. But the darkness didn't end. This is what ultimately made the impact unsurvivable for every large dinosaur on Earth, including Imperobator. Not the fireball, not even the immediate cold. It was the duration. The ash and soot in the upper atmosphere persisted for years. Some estimates suggest up to a decade of reduced sunlight, globally. And without sunlight, the plants at the base of the Antarctic food web began to fail. Not immediately, not all at once, but steadily, irreversibly. Think about what that meant for Imperobator specifically. It was an apex predator. It ate large prey. Large prey ate plants. When the ferns stopped regenerating, when the southern beaches failed to bud in spring, the herbivores had nothing. They thinned. They died. And Imperobator, powerful, fast, built for a world that was disappearing beneath its feet, found less and less to hunt. An apex predator cannot outlast its prey for long. It can go without food for weeks, perhaps, It can cover larger and larger distances searching for something, anything, still alive. But the math is brutal and unforgiving. The bigger you are, the more you need. And the more you need, the faster the emptiness catches up to you. The last Imperobators were almost certainly gaunt, ranging further than their territory had ever required, finding only silence where there had once been abundant life. The forest around them was thinning, not burning, not collapsing in a single dramatic moment, but quietly dying, tree by tree, fern by fern. In the endless gray half-light of a sun, the ash refused to let through. We don't know exactly when the last one died. There is no fossil of a final moment, no bones arranged in some last dramatic pose. Somewhere in the sediment layers of James Ross Island, the record of Imperobator simply stops. One generation there, the next generation absent. An animal that had hunted these forests for hundreds of thousands of years, gone, not in an explosion, not in a fire, but in a slow fading, like a light being turned down rather than switched off.